Welcome to our next episode of Disruptors. Disruptors, as you know, focuses on how technology, behavior, customer experience, product experience is evolving. And we take the opportunity in this podcast to invite various leaders, experts from across the industry to share their perspectives. Because how are they doing things? How are they evolving? How are they responding to the changes as well? Today, we have an opportunity of speaking to Vivek Bahadur. Vivek Bahadur is a very senior leader at TCS. He heads digital marketing and CX, especially focused towards BFSI at TCS. And would love to maybe hear a bit more about his career from him and then his insights. Vivek, some bits from you.
Hi, Amber. Good morning, and thank you for having me, first of all. And many congratulations on starting this series of podcasts. I enjoyed hearing the first two. And just a brief introduction about myself. I lead digital marketing and CX strategic initiative for financial services, and this is part of the banking technology and transformation unit in the company. And I work across strategy, consulting, transformation, innovation functions. And me and my team, we work with our clients, try to understand their challenges, priorities, and we are responsible for bringing in the best in terms of TCS services, solutions, subject matter expertise to help them. And also today, I'll be speaking in a personal capacity and will be sharing my individual views. Just to add, in the past, I incubated and I set up the UX service practice for banking. We scaled it up to the size of a small agency. And, thank you for helping us back then. And in terms of training our teams, I think it was 2015. You had come to the TCS campus in Chennai for UX training and when you used to work for HFI. So glad to be here and looking forward to this conversation, Amber.
Likewise, Vivek, likewise. Very exciting to have you here on that. Now, we've been chatting offline as well. And, one of the topics that you and I were speaking about was that, especially in today's context, especially in context to BFSI and marketing, personalization is becoming critical. And insights on how to approach this or challenges around that, I think would be very valuable to understand for anyone who's approaching how to do marketing in this space. So, love to hear some thoughts from you.
Sure, Amber. That's very close to my heart. And just to answer that straight away, personalization is largely lacking in the context of financial services, and I'll explain that. And it's lacking in a big way because when it comes to the customer expectations and the experience being provided by most brands, there's a big gap. And it is felt in a significant way because as consumers, we are so used to the hyper personalized experiences which are being provided by the likes of Amazon, Netflix, YouTube, Uber. We are constantly using these apps on an everyday basis, and they have spoiled us to a large extent. And when we are so surrounded by these experiences, we find the same thing missing in context of our financial services providers. Of course, there are quite a few exceptions. We shouldn't kind of do a general commentary here, but there are quite a few fintechs and insurtechs who have created some fantastic experiences. But largely, personalization is lacking. Um, and with the advent of Gen AI and agentic experiences, this gap and the expectations are, going to reach another level, of course. And there are a variety of reasons for this. The constraints imposed by the regulatory guidelines, compliance checks, legacy platforms, siloed lines of businesses, data restrictions, GDPR, customer consent, rules of engagement. So all these aspects bring in challenges, complexities in delivering personalization. And moreover, using the customer data for personalization, it requires drawing that fine line between being caring and being creepy. Okay. And it is very, very important in the context of financial services where this whole relationship is based on trust. Um, and we'll discuss more on this. Um,
But does personalization stop being creepy if there is user consent, or people still might feel a bit creeped out if they realize that you're looking at their transaction data very closely and then trying to push some product. I don't know what's your experience with that.
See, even with the user consent, I think you have to do it, in a very nuanced way. You can't be very direct about it. That look, I've been collecting all your transaction data, and then you're showing it on, very blatantly to me. So I wouldn't feel very comfortable with that, even though I've given consent. So it has to be done in a nuanced way. It may not be like directly, but it could be like customers like you, or in some other way where you know um, uh, people like you have the opportunity to earn much higher returns. And would you like to explore and review your current portfolio, and get some recommendations on the same? So there are ways to go about it, and of course, there could be other examples as well.
So it's tastefully done. It's not so much about what data you have access to, how much data you have access to. It's about how tastefully are you rendering the personalization at the end of it, which can create the ROI you're looking for. Interesting.
Right, and it's about giving that experience in the moment, because I don't actually use my banking app every day. So whenever I need it, whenever I need something in terms of financial services, the bank should be able to recognize that need, and in that moment of need should be able to serve the right content or offers, as the case may be.
Very interesting. So look, you shared a very obvious expectation that a BFSI customer would have, and I believe there is an evolution of expectation which is happening with customers. This is one of the signs, right? They expect things to be anticipatory. Are there other things which you already know of that customers are expecting, BFSI players to serve maybe differently? Anything else which comes to your mind?
Let me answer it in a different way, Amber. So I gave the example of how we are, surrounded by the experiences provided by, likes of Netflix, Amazon, Uber, or Zomato, and the context is very different there, because you feel hungry 3 or 4 times a day, and Zomato is always there to give you a little nudge and tickle your taste buds, and that's how you get engaged into the app, and you are able to build that kind of relationship with the customer, and they also know what kind of favorite stuff you like to eat in terms of snacks, savories, and so on. Similarly, in terms of e-commerce, you're probably wanting to look for a mobile phone or a new gadget, or for some nice deals, and you want to see visuals and product descriptions. um, so that's very different from an everyday banking kind of a context, where you're wanting to do some basic transactions like checking your account balance, or transferring some money. Unless the bank makes some exciting propositions, which are differentiating, which are interesting in the moment, you would miss that opportunity altogether. So uh, of course, when there is a clear need, I show an intent that, look, I'm interested in this credit card or travel insurance. Then, of course, the marketing funnel has to be very, very precise and very fast in terms of, nurturing that lead, converting that lead, and onboarding me as a customer. But more often than not, it's not only about acquisitions, because, in many markets, it's already a saturated context. It's about deepening the customer relationships. And there, it's all about financial well being and how you can trust the bank as your companion when it comes to your financial needs. So it's about anticipating, what you may want in terms of your goals, or and of course, we'll talk about agentic experience in the future. So, how that is probably going to shape up. I'll give some examples of how I am thinking it might look like.
Interesting, very interesting. And one piece you mentioned on that the banks also have to evolve their offering as compared to the food delivery example that you did, where the offerings are often more emotional, and on the BFSI side, often the offerings are perceived as more transactional per se. But I believe there is an opportunity. BFSI is emotional. A lot of the things, whether it's insurance, whether it's credit, payments, deposits, it's emotional. Is actually, I would say, is far more emotional than any other field there is, and which is why the way you communicate, the way you engage people, and that becomes very, very important. It's not about just connecting pipes. You know, about a payment gateway connected to some payment network. It's not about that. It's about how do you render very complex emotions. How do you feel about giving your money for FD? There was one of the tier one banks that we were building something for Vivek. I wanted to share that with you, and it was the fixed deposit journey. And when we building the fixed deposit journey, the challenge was it was a very transactional affair. Fill out this form and tell us who your nominee is and what's your dad's name and things like that. It's very transactional, very robotic, and people were just bouncing off. And the question was, if in offline we're giving them this form, they're filling it. The moment we give them on this app and this digitized flow, they are just bouncing off. 75% people are bouncing off. What do you do there? And when we tried to understand what was going on there, it was not about how many fields were in the form. It was the reaction that people were facing. First, very hard to decide which FD. You're giving them 25 different FDs. They're getting very overwhelmed and they're getting scared. And then you're asking them to park a lot of money. People, even though they're parking their money in FD to get interest, it's a grudge. It's a grudge expense where they're, you know, almost like parking a piece of the heart into over there and it'll get locked. And all these emotions play out. And if you handle these emotions, the outcome of that work was that the revenues for that year doubled from 35,000 crores, it went 70,000 crores, because just by understanding the psychology of how someone actually goes about doing a fixed deposit itself changes the revenue game as well. So all of this, I think, is very important. And you are bang on with regards to what personalization is important. By understanding psychology, understanding this entire marketing funnel is very important. Now, you mentioned customer behavior in the context of BFSI, and people's expectation is changing. It's no longer transactional. It's no longer ki, for the lack of better words, and I will use a bit of Hindi, payment ho jani chahiye. That time is gone. That's given. That's basic hygiene. So the customer behavior has changed in terms of expectations. Technology is also changing. So in your point of view, how does marketing as a field need to evolve, and especially, the context of CX and marketing leaders, CMOs, what do they do differently now?
Sure. Uh, this whole area, Amber, it's very close to my heart, and I've been looking at this space for some time now. And whatever you just mentioned about the emotions, and then kind of getting the uh, right uh, response to those underlying emotions and how you drive customer behavior, that is the key. And we are living in this experience economy today, right? And but in banking, as you said, you experience the sea of sameness, right? It's the same set of products, services, which different brands are delivering. It's a checking account, savings account, credit card, insurance, mortgage. You don't see a lot of differentiation there. Um, and this is where the CMO comes in, because you see, uh, traditionally CMOs have been mostly brand centric. They create the brand, and then they grow the brand, and they are responsible for protecting the brand. But now they are also expected to drive business growth. It's no longer about just being a brand centric focus for the CMOs, and they also need to drive the ROI just beyond the vanity metrics or the brand metrics. And in today's context, experience is now the new brand, right? And because CMOs are storytellers at heart, they're marketeers, and they are supposed to understand the nuances of customer behavior better than anybody else in the CXO layer. Uh, so that is why they are playing such an important role, or the spotlight is more and more on the marketing function to drive customer behavior. And if I try to draw a parallel with user experience vocabulary, because we come from the same background, you could say in some ways it is similar to PET, which is the persuasion, emotion, trust in a way. And this is the CMO's domain. Um, and they are now being seen as the custodians of the customer experience beyond promotions, campaigns. They are given now the responsibility to create digital platforms and create those differentiated experiences across the channels. And this often cuts across sales, marketing, servicing journeys, and touch points, because you can't really separate out them into silos, because what you want to deliver is a holistic customer experience. And just to add, in terms of the expectations, from the CMO, the world of marketing has also changed by technology and data. These two uh, elements are very, very powerful drivers behind marketing. And CMOs are expected to develop a very good understanding of digital ecosystems, which is a bit of a struggle to them because they traditionally come from the creative world. And from the brand side, yeah. So this bridge between the world of marketing on the one side and the world of technology needs to be built. And so that the CMO and the CIO and the CDO, the data officer, these functions need to collaborate much more, work closely together, and in order to be really effective, from the enterprise context.
Interesting because see, and my takeaways from this week is that initially brand was a domain. It's all about impressions, all about getting click throughs and things like that. And then slowly their KPIs are more around NPS or actually getting real sales metrics in the touch points and the funnels going forward. So that entire transition of that career is becoming more and more technology centric. It's not just the esoteric part, which is brand and then how people tend to feel, which is quite intangible in sense, except for impression that you achieve. But moving towards the technology side, and in the technology side, you mentioned the word collaborate, CIO with CDO, etc. But they almost have to educate themselves to become more technology centric, and for the lack of a better word, they have to become part CIO. Without understanding these tools, these semantic platforms, yes, given, but just understanding the tech itself and how does it deliver the NPS, how does it deliver the sales KPIs or the conversion KPIs, which are now mapped to them as well. They have to understand a lot of things. Not easy.
No, no, I totally agree. And we'll probably talk about the world of MarTech also during the course of the conversation, but I totally agree with your points.
So, in this space, we understand the role needs to change. We understand that the way marketing needs to be done needs to change. And you mentioned briefly that technology is one specific area. Are there themes in your mind that this, and these are the themes that should be looked at in driving this kind of evolution, whether it's the leadership evolution or the entire marketing approach evolution?
Of course. So, Amber, I mean, personalization we talked about, that's the underlying theme. And, that topic is beaten to death. But it is actually uh, something which is, as relevant as it was, a few years back. And it's something which is always going to be in the forefront. But MarTech, specifically, you know, getting the right MarTech in place, adopting it, integrating it, optimizing it, that is a huge challenge because about 25% of the marketing budget goes into MarTech. And that's a huge area of focus for marketeers, and how to understand the best way of organizing the MarTech ecosystem and getting the value delivered from it. Apart from that, of course, there are customer data platforms which are essential part of MarTech, but focusing on customer data, we'll talk about that as well. There is customer consent, which is a big theme because in financial services, although you may have millions of customers, but how many customers actually give you the consent to market? So your marketable universe is actually probably less than 5% in many cases of your customer base. How do you, think of ways and means to increase your marketable universe? How do you engage the customers? And again, this is related to the world of personalization and how you deliver that across channels. Then, uh, there is this whole area about understanding how you can optimize your marketing spend between agency and in-house functions. So a lot of focus on, let's say, optimizing your marketing operations, ways and means to outsource it, or having the right balance. And there are other industry themes like accessibility, specifically now coming to the European Union, where you are going to see an increasing adoption of accessibility standards. And this is also driven by regulations. There is a consumer duty regulation in the UK. So these are industry or region specific nuances, which are also significant themes. Agentic, we'll talk about it separately, Amber. I think that's a hot topic, top of the mind. Um, yeah, these are the things. And
But
of course, few
one
others.
more I wanted to ask you about is, and I've been hearing about this offline, is about automation of content supply chains on that. So there is a lot of talk about that. This can be completely automated, which would actually impact a lot of small scale providers and agencies who actually do this work as well. And I think some of the biggest platforms, Adobe platform, etc., are doing a lot of work in that context. What is your understanding, your thought about this part as well?
Absolutely. Content supply chains is a huge area of focus because you see today it is possible to create content at scale and with a lot of velocity. But you need to have the right tools, set of processes, automation, workflows in order to really have that implemented at an enterprise scale and fitment. So for that, you definitely need to have your content supply chains supporting your content delivery, production, and scaling the whole area.
Absolutely, and I think it's time. We cannot avoid the topic anymore, and we have to get on to agentic because I'm hearing a lot of talk, especially in content supply chain, of putting agents, whether from data aggregation point of view, from actual content creation point of view, the creative part, and then also dissemination of that content. The entire marketing funnel, there is a lot of talk about agents come into the play. In fact, transforming the entire CX. So, love to hear what is your experience and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a hot topic, and it's top of the mind. And of course, it's also the most exciting part of any conversation relating to customer experience now. And probably it's exciting, and everything is going to be AI infused in future, as they say. there is also a lot of hype, and we should just be mindful of that because enterprises are really struggling in terms of the readiness of the underlying systems and data enablement, associated guardrails, controls, and the related AI ops and infrastructure enablement, which is still very much work in progress. It will take some time, but we could probably look at this whole agentic space from two different perspectives. The first one is the enterprise context, where it is mostly about internal facing world of agents, which are going to be conceived to simplify, orchestrate, automate processes, and they will empower the employees to deliver an exceptional experience to the customer. So that's the hope and ambition. And the other context is actually the customer facing channels, where the agents will be creating the new experience for the brand.
Very interesting.
And starting with the channels, there are a couple of aspects which come to mind. The first one in future, and possibly you will also agree with me, we are going to see less and less of UI and more of conversations, which may be chat or voice based. And this is where agents are going to represent the brand and they will become the voice of the brand. So you could have your own personal agent on the app, doing things for you, looking out for you, taking care of your financial well being, wondering if your investments are giving you the right returns. It can kind of prompt you and would you like me to review your portfolio? And it may say that customers with similar risk appetite are getting up to X% higher return on investments. Would you like to see how your portfolio could be rebalanced to give you optimized returns and so on, right? And this may be done in an alternate channel. The whole experience of the agents, you don't probably even need to log in into your app, maybe just for authentication. And the other aspect is when it comes to discovering the brand, or if you take traditional search or discovery, the SEO area, the search engine optimization, the brand discovery will now be getting replaced by AI driven search more and more. And there is this new phrase called GEO, or generative engine optimization. That's going to happen more and more in the future. And instead of doing search and then landing on the website and then navigating to the website, looking for the content, you're probably not going to be doing that in the future. Yeah, you are going to be exploring stuff through the GPTs of the world, and the brand needs to give an AI centric response to the queries which are being put into the Gen AI powered tools. And they would need to show up and serve the relevant content on the channels where the consumers are. And that's not necessarily their own channels.
Makes a lot of sense, sir. Makes a lot of sense. And I'll just pick a bit that you talked about that, the way that people will actually interact with services is going to change. There was a point of time where it was all about aggregation of features. Yeah. You can call them menus, you can call them whatever. There was aggregation of features. And there was a structured way in which users were expected to be able to actually go and move through that. And some of the examples of that, so I want to know, how's my investment doing or what I should do or predictions around that. Now, if you have to find that, you have to be able to go through that structured approach. You have to go through that features and be able to locate what you're doing. But there is certain amount of cognitive load which is involved in that. And there is a transition in human behavior where people want to do less and less of that. It's not just technology changes. It's not just the fact that we have AI's transformers and other technology which can build better, but the fact that customers' expectations are changing. And I can see in the products that we are building that customers are doing less of that. The numbers are going down in the traffic and the way the traffic is behaving in the traditional manner. Traffic is behaving entirely in a new way. So there is an opportunity to be able to surface on demand, anticipatory and on demand content and abilities with something like this is a way to think about it. And I think this way, and I call this future edge approach or a future edge framework. This is very important to start thinking because fundamentally the way the products have been built so far is a very SDLC kind of perspective. It was a very infrastructure way that you start with collecting features and build roadmap, and then you put them into packages of softwares and SaaS, and then you deliver that. But the whole paradigm of the way the customers are actually interacting with us is changed. The paradigm of the way that we can render this via technology is also changed, which means the way you have to imagine experiences has to be changed. It cannot be done the same way.
Absolutely.
So I think that's really critical thinking for any CMO, and I would say even CPOs. They have to think about building not just the CX side, but the product side also very differently in that context. Very interesting.
Sure. And just to add, Amber, you're already seeing a lot of glimpses of that happening. Let's say for the lending space, you can see, outbound calls, conversations using automatic speech recognition and text to speech conversions. And the agents are being deployed in various modalities for lead generation, lead qualification, upsell, cross sell, and even in journeys like account activation and onboarding. So all this is supported by a voice-based mode of communication, authenticated by voice biometrics, as the need may be. So uh, you know, and a lot of it is also autonomously working agents. And of course, you can get a human, when the conversation becomes more complicated or it needs assistance of having the human in the loop. But I recently saw some really powerful demos where agents can be created very, very quickly without the need of any UX design, just by leveraging a library of prompts, specifying the persona for which the agent needs to, take that shape and form, grounded with some rules of engagement, with the tone of voice, whether you need to sound empathetic, or maybe you want to do a negotiation of some sort, or maybe when it comes to some uh, tough use cases like collections, you may want to sound a bit authoritative and even a bit threatening. All that is now coming to life in a very interesting way. Of course, it needs to be carefully worked out, but it's happening.
Absolutely. See, now I will plug in the fact that UX still remains relevant in that context because see, technology is there, but it's not just about connecting pipes, right? It's not just about connecting AI pipe to an existing CX pipe and create multiple agents and it's done. You have to still imagine how you'll deliver that service and what are that experience that you will deliver with the customer such that you will generate KPI that you're looking for. The manifestation may not be UI. There might be smaller bits of UI. There may be some bits of NLP and voice-based interaction. There might be certain parts which are entirely replaced by agents in the backend, which don't need to be there anymore because that was anyway manual work that we are pushing out to customers just because we didn't have the ability right now. So a mix of that will come, but someone needs to craft all that together, right? Now, whether we call it marketing strategy, whether we call it CX strategy, the experience aspect in my mind doesn't disappear. But the role of experienced practitioners, I think, would change significantly. They need to educate themselves in terms of how to do this kind of work. It's no longer Figma. It's no longer just how do you actually build those things and put that together. That's no longer going to help you because it's not that UI will disappear, but the quantum of UI required across the CX is going to become significantly lesser, which means that you need to then be able to design the remaining part of the CX also, which is not UI. How is that going to work? And what is the methodology and approaches for that? The SDLG doesn't teach you that. Alan Cooper, Nielsen Norman method doesn't teach you that. So there is an opportunity of an entirely new framework to be able to address all this.
Absolutely. So we are now entering the world of agentic experiences and agentic design, which is going to be quite different from the world of traditional UX design. So, as a designer, you need to now change your lens. Whatever training, education skills, design schools have been imparting in terms of, creating the visual designs or the wireframes or the clickable prototypes. That's now going to kind of you have to kind of look at it in a completely different way. uh, and see elements of conversation design and agent orchestration, delivering the end-to-end customer experience. So, as you said, the lens of the designer uh, will stay very, very relevant, but it needs to change, in a big way.
Absolutely. And would love to actually host you at some of the design universities, Vivek, at some point of time, because I think both from the curriculum structure as well as the way the students are understanding their career, I think these insights are very important, very, very critical at this point of time. And I'm part of board of a few universities. I am actually teaching at multiple universities, and they're all struggling right now. So what do these kids do when we just mostly toss them Figma and they're heading out right now, and everyone's worried what will their actual work is going to be. And mostly it is trying to use some AI tool which generates UI better. I don't think that's the point. I think that that's missing the entire picture that we just discussed. The picture is much larger. That's it's changing the fundamental skills, and it's changing the role of where experienced practitioners even sit in the entire structure of delivering this kind of digital transformation. I think that needs to be thought about. Now, very interesting question for you, Rick. Uh, Many companies that I talk to, they look at agentic in a very specific way. For the lack of a better way of describing it, it's mostly cost optimization. It's all about putting some chatbot uh, save human costs or some pipeline costs by putting that. I'm fundamentally uncomfortable with that approach. I don't know what your thoughts are.
It needs to be thought through, Amber. It is, of course, optimization is the end goal, and you you can now have the technology which is provided by agentic, uh, tools to kind of deliver on that promise of cost optimization, but it needs to be really looked at it, in a way that it is fit for purpose. And if you end up doing something which is actually spoiling a nice experience which is existing, right, then you would end up doing more harm than good, even though you may realize some cost benefit.
Yeah. Many cases, I've heard of
So
many cases like that where actual with the intent of cost optimization, implementing this led to worse business numbers and then what was desired. So that is there. And at least the potential technology that we're dealing with, technologies that we say, because AI is a collection of technology, it's not just one thing. The potential that we have in terms of what we're doing, I think we can entirely reimagine CX in the specific use cases. It's not just about optimizing the same thing, it's about making the pipeline better and saving some dollars. It's about selling better. It could be about entirely changing digital selling. Can it be entirely new ways? In fact, Google gave us some examples in their IO where they talked about that how they could use generative AI as a visual trial room that you could try on outfits and see how you look. And that this was one of the examples. But the nature of the way you sell could fundamentally change because, if you think of it, e-commerce and its structure from showing a catalog and then search and filter on top of it and then you show details in that is not fundamentally changed for donkey years. It's pretty much the same thing in that CX funnel. You're doing the same thing over and over again. And it's all about a logistical connection solution, which means you're connecting a warehouse to a catalog, to your SKUs, and then being able to render that. That entirely is just a pipeline logistics solution. It's not so much about how do you sell something to somebody. And the best example, and you and I have talked about this in the pet course and some of the other courses as well. The best example of how something is sold is if you go to a sari shop. You go to a sari shop, and before they sell you something and says that, do you want some tea? They start with that. They start with fundamental psychology and reciprocity as well. And the moment we get into digital sphere, it's all about, okay, just show the catalog. See, do you like something? Please. It starts being human. But now you have an opportunity of being, I think, far more human. And digital selling is only one use case, whether it's healthcare, whether it's anything in BFSI, deposits, FDs, etc. There's an opportunity of completely reimagining all these use cases and doing some fantastic work there. I think that's the point where we are at. We are not at a point where we are sitting and feeding AI to replace different parts of CX funnel, then people are losing jobs, etc. I think that's all of doom and gloom. But if you look at the what we can do with this and what companies can actually gain in terms of business value, what customers can gain in terms of experiential value, I think is tremendous.
True. True. And as you said, it's going to be about creating those multimodal experiences. And it's not about just creating crisp digital journeys. Wherever a human element is required, you must have that, because you probably cannot substitute that with a bot. Of course, and when it comes to financial services, I think I would like to say that we're always looking for inspiration from other industries like e-commerce or retail or travel or entertainment, telecom, because they want to borrow the engagement elements, the nuances of how you provide those experiences into banking, and they want to be the brand which then probably wants to be the Netflix of banking, right? But quite far away from that. But I think one interesting thing which we are seeing is area called financial media networks, which is emerging, where it's a new thing in financial services, where banks are actually partnering with brands on shopping, travel, or lifestyle themes, and you can add a bit of spice to financial services by doing that. And this is being enabled by technologies like data clean rooms. And essentially, what it does is it helps you share data between brands without compromising on the PII and the confidential information. So, brands like Revolut, Klarna, PayPal in the payment space, and banks like JPMC are now creating new business models on partner data ecosystems using their own digital platforms, which their customers are using, and bringing in the relevant partner offers for their customers and creating an entirely new proposition for the brands. So it's an ecosystem which is now being brought in. It is not just pure play banking. And while you may call it a bit controversial that why would a bank get into this kind of a business, so of course it needs to be thought through and done carefully, but just wanted to add that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot more opportunities, a lot more business models which potentially can come in this evolving landscape. And there's an opportunity, I think, for BFSI to also become the benchmarks. You mentioned that, often BFSI is looking at e-commerce, looking at, some other vertical as a benchmark. I think uh, regulations apart, but with the potential of whether what platforms, technologies can do in today's world, there's an opportunity to create some of those benchmarks. And there are fintechs who are doing it. There are fintechs who are creating really disruptive experiences. Then neo banking, the fundamental neo banking came from being able to deliver a very disruptive way of being able to actually deal with your savings accounts and things around that. And how do you even do savings? Acorns, those kind of business models have come up with that. So there's a lot of opportunity, and that's what excites me. That's what excites me, that with agentic over here, with the way customer behavior and expectations are changing, it will put pressure. It will put pressure on brands. It will put pressure on companies to do better. You cannot be in the heydays of being comfortable with just being transactional. My offering is there. By the fact it is there, people will buy it. No, you cannot do that. You cannot do that anymore. You have to be hyper competitive. You have to build new business models. You have to build very new ways of engaging people, and that's That's the way to go. And that's the digital transformation to go for. It's no longer reskilling. It's no longer UIfication that we can do. And that's where we are at. So fantastic insights, Vivek, in this conversation with you. I had a great time on that. And just to be very respectful of your time, I know we already are over quite a few minutes and that I requested from you today. But if you can leave us with say very few caveats. Within this changing landscape, in this evolving technology, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of flux which is going on as well. But CX leaders need guiding lights. They need, what should we do? What's the immediate focus thing that I should look at in that? What are those few things, two or three things which come to your mind that you would like to leave us with?
I wish I had a simple answer to that, Amber. But I think it is all about value realization in the end. And while you've invested a lot in technology and platforms already, you're not seeing the ROI. So there is that side to it where so much of investment has already happened in technology, but how to kind of get the maximum ROI or the value realization delivered from that technology. And so that is like one of the starting points, and to be able to demonstrate how you can effectively use what is available. And secondly, of course, is the world of agentic experience and how you could parallelly prepare your enterprise for an AI infused future. And it's about what value would uh, get delivered in the business context and to the customers, and how you could take those decisions in terms of prioritization, doing your MVPs, rolling out pilots, and so on. And it needs to be done with a sense of urgency. Otherwise, you're going to lose that window of opportunity to the competition. So, one is kind of utilizing what you have in the most effective way and demonstrating the value, in terms of that return on investment. The other is really uh, taking this agentic challenge and seeing what are those use cases which will make the best sense in the business context and delivering value to your customers, and really kind of go on a war footing, in terms of trying them out and rolling them out, uh, and creating that differentiation.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So there's a there's a window of opportunity. Right? Window of opportunity, and uh, it's highly disruptive potential that can generate, but at the same time, there's a lot of pressure with urgency as well. Very, very, very interesting thoughts, Wake. Thank you for leaving us with these gems, and I'm quite sure the audience will be thrilled to hear all of that we have talked about today. At the same time, also would reach out to you on LinkedIn and other channels to gain more of your insights and guidance on how they can take that forward. But Vivek, thank you so much for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure to speak with you, and looking forward to more conversations.
Great. And thank you so much, Amber. It was a pleasure, and I really enjoyed having this conversation. Looking forward to more of these, maybe offline and in other forums. Thank you so much.